Hey, what's up, guys? You downloaded a brand new episode of Speaking Wrestling with Elvis Arroyo, and as always, I am your host, Elvis Arroyo, and this is episode 31, and on this episode, we are speaking Smackdown, Raw, what to watch for, and I'm going to give you guys my performers and floppers of the week, so stick around for that. Also want to give you guys a quick reminder to head on over to our YouTube page, hit subscribe. You can also follow us on Instagram at Speaking Wrestling and on Twitter at Speaking Wrestle. Alright guys, and with Crown Jewel only a few days away, and also Halloween just a few days away, Smackdown and Raw produced pretty interesting shows on the way to Crown Jewel. So let's start over with Smackdown as we go back to Friday night. And Smackdown was a really good show, I gotta say, much interesting. I gotta say, now that the rosters are being finally set, being in place, coming off the draft, I really like how the rosters are setting up, though. Although I do think that Monday Night Raw picked up the bigger hand with more talent and more superstars over there. Yes, it is a 3-hour show opposed to a 2-hour SmackDown, but I think SmackDown still has some good stars, and we saw with the opening footage of the two teams with Team Flair and Team Hogan being represented with SmackDown superstars only on SmackDown, that being the Raw superstars were still back on Raw, like Ricochet and Rusev and Bobby Lashley. We got a good lineup of guys still over on SmackDown. You have Randy Orton, you have Ali, you have Shorty Gable, you have Shinsuke Nakamura, you have Baron Corbin. You still have a good amount of guys to put on a good show. And of course, you have the big dog, Roman Reigns. And SmackDown kicked off with Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan once again tearing it into each other. I like this a lot. You know, this match, for as much as it's just another Survivor Series 5-on-5 match, the promos between Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair coming out week after week and just entertaining us, it's awesome. I think it's all worth it if it's just a match at Crown Jewel, and no one's really going to care about Crown Jewel. And like I did mention, Shorty G was involved in this opening segment. Shorty G wearing some new apparel. I mean, he looks something like out of a comic book character. Everybody on social media was saying that he looked like something out of Space Jam, and he did. But, you know, this is really where I said that WWE, they get a grip on something that they think is going to catapult them to new heights, and they only just hammer it in more and more to the point where you just don't care anymore. And this, I think this takes a little bit of that away from Chad Gable, who was picking up support from the audience. I mean, when you put him in an outfit like this, looking like a basketball player, I mean, it takes you all out. He looks like a cartoon character. So we'll see where it goes. But up to now, it's once again WWE taking something that organically could have been great, but then they just put their paintbrush all over it and color them up like they did. But this opening segment was just to lead into the main event of SmackDown, which would be a 6-man tag between Roman Reigns, Ali, Shorty Gable taking on Baron Corbin, Shinsuke Nakamura, and Cesaro. And this was a really good match. I gotta say, there's a really good match at the end. Good action. Really reminded me of those episodes of SmackDown back in like 2001 going off the air, where it's just click, click, boom, action packed. Good stuff. I mean, seriously, I kind of am hyped a little bit going into this match. Again, look, if you tell me you're going to put Hogan or especially Ric Flair out there with the microphone, I'm tuning in. 5-on-5 match, Randy Orton, Ricochet, Roman Reigns, Ali, Shorty G, Rusev. Sign me up. And speaking of Shinsuke Nakamura, he was all over this show. He was in this opening segment with Hogan and Flair. He also was in the main event in the 6-man tag, like I mentioned, and he also was in the middle of the show when him and Sami Zayn came out and interrupted Daniel Bryan, as Daniel Bryan was interviewed and asked, "Is the Yes Movement back?" by Michael Cole. And before he could answer that, he was interrupted by Shinsuke and Sami Zayn, which Sami Zayn, right now, who he is not physically active, he's not in-ring competitor, although he is serving as the mouthpiece to Shinsuke Nakamura, is doing hell of an amazing job right now. Again, despite not being an in-ring character at the moment, this promo was great. And once again, this is where you take a little bit of, you blur the lines of what's real and what's not. And I like this. I think this little segment between Daniel Bryan deciding whether he's going to join Shinsuke Nakamura, as if it was proposed to him by Sami Zayn, who made some very valid points as to why, you know, it could be a great thing that Daniel Bryan, this late in his career, and with the two guys like Shinsuke and Sami Zayn, as Sami Zayn described that all three of them are artists in this ring, and they are. I mean, he made a very good case for that. All three of those guys are artists at what they do, and Sami Zayn, showing you what he's really good at, and that's presenting great live art out there, and his dialogue was great. I love this a lot. This is different from anything else right now. It's very intriguing. We'll see where Daniel Bryan goes. This is definitely a good step in the direction for the Daniel Bryan character, coming off of that awful debacle of who killed Roman Reigns. We also saw the Firefly Funhouse from Bray Wyatt, and I gotta say, guys, I did not give one shit about the Firefly Funhouse up until this point. The WWE has kind of ruined him for me in a little bit, but getting past the Seth Rollins, which we will talk about Seth, of course we do here. I'm past the character for the moment until we see where he's going to lay and whose next opponent is, because at this point you have a Raw and a Smackdown competitor competing for a championship at a pay-per-view, non-US. So right now it's just like up in the air with that character. I really wish they never went in that direction, because I didn't care. I don't even remember what happened. It's something about Ramblin' Rabbit getting killed again. I mean, look, it's if you don't watch, it's almost the same thing at this point. It really seems like, they've really run out of the ideas with this whole Firefly Funhouse. But, seeing that Bray Wyatt is going to be the guest on Miz TV this week, I think that might be a clear indication that they've run out of ideas with that at the moment. And I think that, that wouldn't be a bad thing for Bray Wyatt. I think the live audience pays their good earned money to see Bray Wyatt and a character like The Fiend in person, and not something that they could have seen on TV or on their phone. So, that's one mishap of the WWE that they could correct with the Bray Wyatt character, because at this point, I was not interested in the Firefly Funhouse any longer. Nikki Cross picks up a very impressive win over Mandy Rose. This is a great match. Nikki Cross, very impressive. She's stepping up her game. And, hey, could we see a title shot for her in the near future? I really hope so, because I think Nikki Cross, again, it could be put in that place to be that fan favorite babyface that's like your dark horse. So, kudos to her on picking up a great win. And, of course, Smackdown. We can talk about Brock Lesnar, Cain Velasquez, and Rey Mysterio. And I say that because if you remember last week, Cain Velasquez showed up on Raw to murder Shelton Benjamin and did absolutely nothing for Shelton Benjamin. But here we are back on SmackDown Live, and it was advertised that Brock Lesnar will be on the show, and Cain Velasquez and Rey Mysterio were out there once again proclaiming their cause as to what they're going to do to Brock Lesnar at Crown Jewel, only to see up on the Titantron Paul Heyman introduce Brock Lesnar. And Brock Lesnar wasn't alone, and it seemed like he was having a little bit too much fun as he was holding Dominic down after what looked like he brutally beat him, maybe gave him an F5 back there. Then we cut to Rey Mysterio, Cain Velasquez backstage at the trainer's room, attending to Dominic, looking over him, and Brock Lesnar comes in with the trash can, knocks out Cain Velasquez, knocks out Rey, gives Rey an F5, like almost through this trainer room's wall. I mean, his foot went through that wall, had flashbacks of that Nitro with Kevin Nash throwing Rey Mysterio into that trailer on the side. And then Brock Lesnar delivers an F5 to Cain Velasquez on top of Dominic as he was laying on the trainer's table. Good shit. I mean, look, Brock Lesnar is one of those guys who doesn't show up often, but when he does, man, he kicks ass. And this is very violent, very, very violent. But, you can't expect anything less from Brock Lesnar. And I love this. Look, for all the haters of Brock Lesnar, the fact that he's the champion again, he's never on the show, he's just hijacking the titles. And, of course, the way that he defeated Kofi Kingston. Some of you marks out there still have not gotten over that. This really made me say, hell yeah, I am enjoying what I watch. And that's what Brock Lesnar brings to the table. And you can't deny that when Brock Lesnar shows up and he's game for what they're doing on TV that day, you're going to get some good stuff. I mean, when has Brock disappointed you? I mean, you might go back to that Dean Ambrose match at WrestleMania, but that really wasn't much anyways. But Cain Velasquez wasn't going to go unspoken before the night ends as he vowed in Spanish that he is going to kill Brock Lesnar. Yeah, kill. He's on air, on broadcast television, saying that he's going to kill a man. Boy, you talk about WWE stepping up and going a little bit edgy with what they've got going on Raw, and now Cain Velasquez saying that he is going to kill Brock Lesnar. I mean, it won't be long until we change that TV PG back to TV 14, the rate we're going. And the rate we're going over to Monday Night Raw. So let's get going over Monday Night Raw. Opening up the show was the Kabuki Warriors with Paige. Paige, once again, reintroducing the Kabuki Warriors. Like I say, she's been around since they've won the championship. She wasn't around. She went off and had, once again, some more medical work, surgery done on her. But this was a good scene because, once again, it puts the Kabuki Warriors in that position to the audience that they are no longer fan favorites. They are heels. And for them to turn on Paige here, this was a little bit of an awkward scene, but we got the green mist from Asuka onto Paige's face, and this was good. You know, Paige did a really good job here of reacting to it. I think she reacted the way, you know, you would react if someone spit in your face and it was in your eye, and green mist no less. So this was a good scene. I love it. Becky Lynch comes out here and makes the save. Good way to open up the show and introduce the Kabuki Warriors, who will be on NXT this Wednesday, and we'll be talking about NXT this Friday on episode 32, along with AEW and NWA. So check that out. But back onto Monday Night Raw, this was a good night. There was some more action throughout the night and more talent being used. Like I mentioned last week, though sometimes these shows are wacky, are confusing, or just frustrating, the fact that last week's show and this week's show, WWE stepped up with their utilization of their talent and their roster, and it's really good. Again, the fact that now we're 2 weeks away or past from the draft, excuse me, the rosters are settling in, and now we're starting to see the talent unfold. And just like this week on Monday, we saw Buddy Murphy take on R-Truth, which was a great match, and Buddy Murphy picking up a great victory. And this is great. You know, Buddy Murphy taking on a WWE character like R-Truth, who is, you know, a WWE staple at this point. He's a veteran, to go up against a newcomer on his first match on Monday Night Raw like Buddy Murphy is good stuff. It's also kind of interesting to see. I mean, again, because here's a guy who's a well-known main roster guy and a character within himself, R-Truth, taking on a guy like Buddy Murphy. And Buddy Murphy was great. I gotta say, his in-ring work was very vicious, violent. I love it. Hard hitting. It really you can tell that R-Truth at moments was realizing, like, okay, I gotta dance with this guy. Like, this guy's bringing it. Hey, this guy wants to be athletic, agile, high flying. Then shit, I can be too. Great match from these two. We also saw Sin Cara once again in action against Andrade in a one-on-one match, but the fact that Zelina Vega got involved heavily in last week's matchup between these two, Sin Cara can play that game too, as he brought out his own female mask luchadora. But to no avail, Andrade and Zelina pick up the victory here. But what was a great match? Great match. And again, I love these two, Zelina and Andrade. They were my MVPs last week on my Performers and Floppers of the Week. Will they make it again this week? Stick around to the very end of the show to find out. But these two are amazing, which is why I think they are a good fit for Andrade to be placed up in that upper echelon of main eventers, because I think the main event scene right now in Raw is open for the taking. I mean, with Braun being over on SmackDown, Bray being over on SmackDown, and Seth Rollins, who after The Fiend is going to need a viable opponent and have great matches. You know, a guy like Andrade is a great fit, because if he's just going around beating guys like Sin Cara and picking up victories along the way, could make a claim for that WWE Universal Title Championship. Charlotte and Natalya teamed up in what was a very surprising tag team between these two, but you can definitely tell that they are laying in the groundwork for what could be a Natalya-Charlotte women's division tag team title reign. And hey, if they're going to build up the Kabuki Warriors as these strong, dominant heels, I think right now would be a good time to build up Natalya and Charlotte. And these two ladies have the great pedigree already instilled in them. I mean, Natalya comes from the Hart Foundation, the Hart family, and Charlotte Flair, I mean, the name says it all. She comes from the greatest of all time, Ric Flair. A great pairing. This would be a good legacy pairing, a great team. Like I said, they have the pedigree in them. They are veterans at this point. They're two of the greatest superstars in the women's division right now on Raw. Why not? Go after that championship. Charlotte going up against Becky or going up against the SmackDown Women's Championship. We've seen that too many times, and I like this direction. I think when you're not in line for a title shot again, or you've gone to the welt way too many times and don't come up with the victory, or you have, and it's time to step away from the main event scene, go down to the tag team scene. I mean, if you don't want to be a mid-carder, go to the tag team. And those tag team belts right now can use, titles. Those titles could use some help with some, superstars walking around with them. Not to say that Asuka and Kairi aren't they, but they're doing a great job right now to elevate those championships as heels, so that when a prominent babyface tag team like Charlotte and Natalya come along and are ready for the taking, they'll take those titles off of them. So I like this right now, and I'm always a big fan of the ladies. I've been a big supporter of women's wrestling, since this revolution really got going on, since the NXT days, even down in FCW. I'm a supporter for this, and I like this. I think those tag team titles deserve a hell of a spotlight. Who better than Natalya and Charlotte at the moment? AJ Styles took on Alberto Carrillo, who AJ was offended the fact that Carrillo says that he's going to be a future champion in the WWE, though he picked the wrong champ to have his first wrestling match on Monday Night Raw, that being Seth Rollins, and AJ took it upon himself to challenge Humberto Carrillo in a one-on-one match tonight on Raw, and it was a great match. These two at times were a little bit sloppy. Again, this is their first time, and AJ, he's 40 years old, over 40 years old, taking on a very young competitor like Humberto Carrillo here, but a great match. I would love to see a program between these two. If it leads to Humberto winning the championship, the U.S. title that is, at some point, I'd love to see that. But good stuff from them, and it looks like we might have a 6-man tag team match already set for next week between the Street Profits, Carrillo taking on the OC. Seth Rollins, speaking of him, the Universal Champion, was in action Monday Night Raw in a Falls Count Anywhere match, taking on Eric Rowan. Again, a Falls Count Anywhere match 3 days ahead of another Falls Count Anywhere match against the Fiend, Bray Wyatt, in Saudi Arabia, Crown Jewel. Yes, a little strange. I think this is once again Vince's tactics of, if you get it on air and you give them a sample of what they could watch at a pay-per-view, that then they might buy it. But again, I don't like that, because if you get a finish, or you get this or a pop or a surprise Monday because they don't want to do it on Sunday, either to get a pop now or to get people to buy into it, I don't buy into that. But nonetheless, this was a really good match from Seth Rollins and Eric Rowan. It really had that feel of a pay-per-view. At one point I thought, like, is this Extreme Rules? Good stuff. They went all over the arena. This match had like 2 commercial breaks. They really filled in that third hour with this Falls Count Anywhere match, and it ended with a halftime heat finish. Yeah. The Rock Mankind halftime heat finish with the forklift. Seth Rollins picks up the win here, as he picks up a win going into Crown Jewel, defending that Universal Championship against the Fiend, Bray Wyatt. And again, guys, like I've mentioned already in the show, this storyline, it's just one of those that I think we all as wrestling fans are just sitting through and cannot wait to get by and see what's in store for Bray Wyatt and see what's in store for Seth Rollins, perhaps a new Universal Champion, because, look, guys, I think we can tell a better story with Seth Rollins not having the Universal Championship at this point. And on to the closing segment of Monday Night Raw. This is a juicy one. Divorce Court, hosted by Jerry the King Lawler. By the way, guys, if you have not listened to Jerry's new podcast on Podcast One, it's great. He gives a lot of insights of how it is every week there on Monday Night Raw, how it's been the last couple weeks, with Vic Joseph and Dio Madden, and what's it like to be back there. And also he gives his input, and I mean, like, it's not like a corporate WWE input of, oh, don't go there, don't talk about AEW. No, he doesn't hold back. He lets it rip. I mean, if he wants to dig into WWE, he digs into WWE. He wants to dig into AEW, he does. He wants to dig into any promotion, any talent, any character out there, he digs into it. And fascinating stuff. So be sure to check it out if you haven't heard that. Jerry the King Lawler, you can look it up on your favorite podcast. Here, Lawler was hosting a divorce court between Lana and Rusev, and all night we're getting little teases and hints, little sequences backstage with Lana and Rusev, and Lana making it clear that she wants to go out there by herself, doesn't need Bobby Lashley. And this was really interesting stuff. I mean, if this took a turn for sure, I really thought, this was going to be Lana saying that she's pregnant. And, that's why she's been acting the way she has. Why is she running off with Bobby Lashley? And poor Rusev, you really feel for the guy the last several weeks, his wife leaving him, only for Lana to drop some interesting news on the fact that Lana that's been acting strange lately. It's been Rusev that's been the one that's acting strange. The fact that Rusev is a sex addict. Yeah, Rusev, the sex addict, apparently he can't get enough sex from his wife, Lana. His beautiful model wife, Lana. I love it. The best line of the night after she said that all Rusev wants to do with Lana is just have sex with her. Rusev says, "Can you blame me?" I love this guy. Look, Rusev, there's no filter to this guy. That's why sometimes foreigners are great, because you never know what they're going to say, because they're not like us Americans that, we think in a way where it's got to be portrayed in acting. We're aware of what we're putting out there. They're just raw, uncut, no filter. And I love that. This scene was great. Out comes Bobby Lashley. And of course, we knew where this was going to go. It's professional wrestling. Well, at least I did. I knew it's going to be with the Bobby Lashley laying out Rusev, and him and Lana stand over Rusev, kissing and making out over him. Oh, man, this was some good stuff. It really took a turn, and definitely, like I said, you turn that knob on how edgy you can get. So, good stuff. A lot of people are turned off again by this story, but I love it. I think right now WWE is slowly hitting a stride that could lead to better things down the way. With the momentum they got going into Crown Jewel, should be an interesting show. All right, guys, and it's time to give you guys what to watch. And this week's what to watch is Crown Jewel. This Thursday, Halloween. Be sure to check it out, guys. It'll definitely be something. So be sure to tune in for that. And time for our MVPs and floppers of the week. This is where I give you guys my MVPs of the week. First off, my MVP is Sami Zayn and Daniel Bryan. Sami Zayn was just great on the mic. His promo was good. And Daniel Bryan, the opposite, who didn't say one word, which is very good with his facials and his body language reacting to Sami Zayn without ever saying a word. So my MVPs, Daniel Bryan, Sami Zayn, and my flopper of the week, guys, for the first time is the Firefly Funhouse. Like I said, I was not any bit interested in the past week's Firefly Funhouse episode, so it makes it on my floppers list. All right, guys, before we get on out of here, I want to give you guys a big thank you for supporting this podcast. Every like, every retweet, every follow helps a lot in helping this podcast grow, guys. And you can do so by heading on over to our YouTube page and hitting subscribe. Look up Speaking Wrestling and listen to previous episodes. You can also follow us on Instagram at Speaking Wrestling and on Twitter at Speaking Wrestle. And don't forget that this Friday it's episode 32 of Speaking Wrestling, where we are speaking AEW, NXT, NWA Power. Enjoy Crown Jewel. Have a great week, guys. Bye-bye.